So when you're pregnant, it kind of introduces a lot of new variables to be aware of. It's not just about, can I do something? It's, does it serve me right now? Does it serve my body right now? Does it serve my long-term performance goals? Does it serve my symptoms or maybe my predispositions to different core and pelvic health symptoms? So we're really trying to take a big picture perspective to a season of life that feels very zoomed in. A lot of people are just like, can I do this? Can I not? What is safe? What is unsafe? And really, we're just trying to connect the dots between her background as an athlete, her mentality as an athlete, her performance goals postpartum, and then what her current core and pelvic health symptoms are, or even her current core and pelvic health predispositions are. That's kind of the inventory that we're taking during pregnancy to help set her up for her postpartum recovery and return to whatever kind of fitness she wants to do, whether it's really high level or more recreational, it all matters. So, couple different principles that I think are really critical for both coaches to understand about their pregnant athletes as well as pregnant athletes to understand about themselves is what I have called the P&PA principle, the pregnancy and postpartum athleticism principle. These take general variables and it helps break down what are the main things I need to be aware of during pregnancy and postpartum now that my body is in a season of different. So the first one is breath. Breath is what we've talked about with being able to coordinate that core system. So as she inhales, she's able to create lengthening of this system. The diaphragm travels down, pelvic floor and abs have to expand to accommodate space of that. And then on exhale, it recoils, it contracts, and then the core system coordinates, creating that co-contraction. So again, on inhale, everything lengthens, and then on exhale, she's able to create this co-contraction. So do a little couple demonstrations there of like a diaphragmatic breath. Inhale, everything lengthens, and then exhale, she thinks about zipping up her midline. And it doesn't have to be like a really dramatic contraction. It's mostly about bringing awareness to her brain about that system, being able to let go of tension, create lengthening, and then create engagement and create that contraction, because ultimately her core and pelvic floor is going to respond to her breath more automatically. She's not going to have to be consciously creating this sort of awareness. She's going to have that, and then she's going to be able to implement that into her activities of daily living as well as her fitness. Okay, so the next one we want to talk about is intra-abdominal pressure. There's a lot of concern here, a lot of awareness because of pelvic health, because of diastasis. And so one cue I really like to use is breathe into your lats. I like that cue because most of us have been taught to breath hold or Valsalva by doing this. Pretend I have a barbell on my back. We typically send pressure into our midline, that rib cage kind of thrusts up, and that puts a lot of pressure here on that midline, both during pregnancy and postpartum when you have a healing diastasis. Or a lot of people have been taught to send pressure down in their pelvic floor where they kind of do this. And they set down in their pelvic floor, they kind of clench their glutes, and you can literally see pressure go down into their lower abdomen, and their pelvic floor has a hard time absorbing that kind of force, especially when you have a heavy load that you're lifting that's adding to that. So the cue I really like for women in general, not just during pregnancy and postpartum, but is to think about sending your intra-abdominal pressure here. So I'm gonna tell her to inhale into her lats. That's kind of inhaling into my hands. That brings the pressure high and wide instead of out to the midline or down to the pelvic floor. So if you can, demonstrate a belly Valsalva. Okay, so we can see how our abdomen expands and relax. And now if you can, kind of do a, where you set down into your pelvic floor. Yep, so it's it's a big brace there, relax. And now we're gonna inhale into her lats. So she's sending her air, her pressure that way. And it's still good IAP, it's just distributing it differently instead of out into the midline or down in the pelvic floor. The next variable that we look at is tension. So many of us have been conditioned to hold in our abs. We suck in our abs, whether we are pregnant or postpartum. We've been doing this our whole life. And every time you suck in your stomach, your pelvic floor also holds tension. If you wanna check yourself right now, go ahead and suck in your stomach as much as you can and pay attention to what your butt does. When you suck in your stomach, you'll automatically feel your glutes kind of clench. So if we turn you sideways, you can see this easy in pregnancy. Go ahead and shake it out and relax your belly. And now I want you to watch her glutes as she sucks in her stomach. So suck in your stomach as much as you can. And you see how much her glutes have to engage just by sucking in her stomach. Now it's really easy, go ahead and relax, during pregnancy and postpartum to want to hold in tension in your abs, whether you're really self-conscious or because that's just something that you've done your whole life. But we want to make sure that we're able to kind of let go of some of that tension, because if you're squeezing your glutes all the time, if you're sucking in your stomach all the time, then that's going to create a hypertonic pelvic floor, which isn't really beneficial heading into labor and delivery, and it's certainly not beneficial for the pelvic floor postpartum. So we want to learn to let go of some of the tension we hold in our glutes and pelvic floor, as well as the tension that we're holding in our stomach. That's why down training is important. That's why being able to lengthen that system and then create different positional adjustments to help kind of untrain that tension is really key. All right, next one, speaking of position, we're going to use different positional cues to kind of help adjust the tension, to help dial in the breath. And so when we look at positions, whether it's posture or in movement, we can look at how people hold themselves in space. Some people naturally have really rounded shoulders, or they hold a lot of tension in their traps here, or maybe they squeeze their glutes a lot at the top of a deadlift, or maybe they really thrust their rib cage a lot and this is how they stand. So we can look at different positional tendencies and then make some adjustments there. So then go ahead and stand to the side again. So go ahead and like ring your rib cage up a lot. Yep. So we see a lot of people that kind of stand like this, or we see a lot of people who maybe like have an anterior pelvic tilt where they stick their butts just a little bit more out here, and then that sends more pressure out on the midline. Some people tend to squeeze their glutes a lot and they have a tucked under pelvis, and they're in this position here. And so we want to bring awareness here and then just kind of like be able, again, like shake it out, be able to find a slight neutral position for you. So that's going to look different for every single person. It's not about having perfect alignment or perfect posture, but it's about knowing where you're holding tension and then how we can use positional adjustments to let go of some of that tension. And then obviously when she's squeezing her glutes, for example, you can see that creates tension in her pelvic floor, but that also produces a lot of force to her midline here. And you can see she just kind of like sent a lot of pressure here just by squeezing her glutes. So that's why if we can adjust her position to keeping her butt behind her a little bit more. She's now changed her belly trajectory with a slight adjustment. She's not having to do anything pretty extreme here. Just that slight positional adjustment now created a different distribution of her body position. And then lastly, movement. Movement is a tool, and it should not be limited during pregnancy or postpartum. We can learn to work with different symptoms, and we can do that by integrating breath, tension, pressure, and different positions into movement. So if we know what she likes to do, if she's familiar with the barbell, if she's familiar with group fitness or whatever it might be, we use the type of movement to help kind of connect the dots between all these different variables. So that's why with a deadlift, as she stands up, we can make sure we're really reinforcing that stacked position where she's not squeezing her glutes and sending a lot of pressure forward like this. Same with a squat, or maybe with a walking lunge. We can tell her, okay, you're gonna exhale out of the bottom of that lunge. And that way we're teaching that coordination of the system, but we're doing it through the lens of movement, which is really what helps athletes and coaches do their job.